Here, you fill in, if there's anything I leave blank, you fill it in. So you said you had a controversial opinion. Culturally, socially, men and women are conditioned to be shaped in different ways. Women are more often to be victimized, men more often to be victimizers, abusers. And men are more likely to see their behavior as normal, and women are not, or not putting them at risk. Hold on, I wrote that down wrong. I mean, do you want to just articulate your position? Because it is your position, not mine. So.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just having trouble articulating myself right now. But in general, yeah, I think I fall under the opinion that we are kind of conditioned by a variety of forces throughout our life, and I think that in any society, there's things that are normalized, and we're blind to those things because this is the society that we're calibrated to, and you wouldn't really otherwise think any differently unless you can take a step back and try to look at them from a different perspective.
Is there any chance we can get you to move a little closer to your mic?
Sorry, is that better?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's way better.
Do you have anything that you would like to address specifically, or that where you would like me to expand on? Or
Okay, so I guess this is from the text. You said, I think. Hold on, I'm just reading it here. You said for men, I think they're shaped into ways that put them into the role of the abuser. And so I'm a little confused by that. You said, I think men are incentivized to view behaviors that are damaging and even cruel towards women as normal. I think this is partially accomplished through exploiting natural biological features of males specifically, but also humans generally. Men are conditioned to tie their self-worth and to learn to value themselves based on the quality and quantity of women and sex they're able to obtain. Combine this with hypersexualization of men by exploiting and corrupting their child brains through adult content exposure, typically at a young age. I'm not going to get into that, but it makes it easy and effortless for a lot of men to objectify and sexualize women without restraint.
do you disagree with that? You don't think that it's very common in our society for men to
I'm just
objectify?
reading what you're saying.
I'm asking if you disagree with it.
I disagree that men are groomed into being abusers.
I think abusers was a strong word, and I shouldn't have said that.
Well, you used it multiple times.
By abuse, I'm defining it as the misuse or improper treatment of women in sex.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can just continue reading, but you could just offer up what your actual position is.
So I think that men, a lot of, how our society is that it ties a man's self-worth to women in terms of...
You're very quiet, so just please very close to the mic.
Sorry. I think that a lot of men have their self-worth tied to sex and women and the quality and quantity that they can obtain. And I think that causes people to behave in irrational ways.
But it would seem to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I do get kind of the strong vibe based on, and this is a vibe check, right? But I do get kind of a vibe based on what you've said earlier in the conversation, that you might be a little bit more on the leftist progressive side. Would that be kind of accurate to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I'm guessing that you believe in some kind of evolutionary model?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, if that's the case, then wouldn't status, which is related to reproduction, be a thing which would be very evolutionarily advantageous?
Yeah.
Well, then why wouldn't society conduct itself around that?
I think status is a normal thing to desire, but I do think that it is kind of exploited in our society.
What do you mean?
Where I think there's a lot of indicators when you're growing up that tell you as a man that if you don't have a woman in your life, or if you aren't able to sleep with a bunch of women, that you're not a high value man.
Yeah, but from an evolutionary standpoint, reproduction is the primary edict, right?
Yeah.
So then the man who reproduces the most would have the most status. That kind of makes the most sense, doesn't it?
Sure.
So, I mean, So then it seems that if reproduction is the primary edict, and having sex with lots of women, we could assume leads to lots of reproduction. Why wouldn't I still don't understand why society wouldn't kind of foment itself around that? Right?
I think that it makes sense that it would form itself around that, but I think it's also overemphasized in a way that.
Well, I mean, we have a birth rate crisis, right? Like, shouldn't we be having more babies, not less babies? So, I mean, wouldn't reproduction of the primary edict matter here? Like, wouldn't that matter a lot? But like all biological entities, their ultimate purpose is to reproduce, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, and man wants to reproduce a lot, which is what he was evolved to do, assigning status to that seems like it makes a lot of sense.
I think it makes sense, but I think it also can lead to people doing questionable things in the pursuit of that status.
Yeah, sure.
Everybody
But I mean,
wants to-
anything you would assign status to could be the case, right? Like anything, literally anything. Having 2 pennies in your pocket, and that is somehow a status marker for humanity, would still lead to all sorts of different outlier problems, right?
Sure.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't really understand why this is a big problem. It seems like it's evolutionarily advantageous.
I think the idea is reinforced that you don't have value unless you have beautiful women in your life, or if you're unable to have sex with many women.
Yeah, right. But I mean, if you're not adhering to the primary edict, wouldn't you have less value? The point is to reproduce, right?
What if you're doing it and you're not reproducing?
Yeah, so I mean, that does bring up a whole different can of worms, which is what happens when you allow a society to fornicate without reproduction. It seems to lead to terrible outcomes. I completely agree with that. But the question still remains, I don't really understand how you would organize a society if reproduction is the goal without assigning status to those who reproduce. I don't really even know how you could do that.
I think in some ways that by tying, like overstressing or emphasizing this, like how we tie our self-worth or value ourselves based upon sex and women is kind of what contributes to the problems that we're having between men and women.
Okay.
Because if
Which
men are
problems?
doing everything to try to access sex or like have sex with as many women as they can and using women and betraying women, then it's going to leave a lot of women in a position where they're
I mean,
not.
aren't they evolved to do just that? Aren't they evolved to spread their seed far and wide to as many women as possible? Isn't that hugely advantageous to
I
humanity?
think what's hugely advantageous is for 2 parents to raise their child together. That is the most likely.
Well, I mean, that's going to require reproduction and status. So like, let me give you an example of what I mean. Let's say a man has a family, has a wife, and he has 4 children.
Mm-hmm.
And that man acquires more status in society because he has a wife and 4 children. And we adhere to that, and we say, oh man, that's some kind of status indicator. Do you think that men would be more likely or less likely to do that?
I think men would be more likely to pursue that.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I think that men would be far more likely to pursue that. So then why wouldn't we, instead of the progressive mantra, push society towards that family unit and give it status? Like, that makes no sense to me.
I think right now we live in a society where people are valuing themselves on materialistic possession.
I totally agree with you on that.
And I think that
completely
includes
agree.
turning women into materialistic possession.
I completely agree with that too, but I think that that's
don't
not
think that's-
because of status. I would say it's because the opposite of that, right? So if you had higher status, if you didn't value materialism, wouldn't less people value it?
If you say that again?
So if you had a higher status in society by not valuing materialism, wouldn't less people value it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it seems like we should, instead of saying we should get away from, status, it seems like status isn't really the problem, but rather what we're valuing that gives a person this status in society.
Yeah, I think I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah,
But
so
I
it
think that's
sounds
kind of
like
what
a
I'm trying to
nuclear
point-
family is the thing that has the most, or should have the most status, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I
Yeah.
think the thing I'm trying to point out is that in our society, that's not what we value. We value material possession and money. And
Yeah, but that's because of feminism, right?
I would disagree.
Well, I don't understand. Are feminists the ones who are out there who value the nuclear family? Because last I checked, they
Some
were
of
doing
them
everything
do.
they can to dismantle it.
I don't know what all feminists believe.
Okay, well, are you a feminist?
I mean, I've never considered myself one, but I probably would if you sat me down and tried to
Yeah.
define
Okay. So feminism is a rejection of patriarchy. That's what it is at its core, right?
it. Sure, but I'm getting married and going to and having children. So
Yeah, I know,
mean,
but
it's
do you
those things
reject
can still be true.
patriarchy?
You can be feminist and still value a family unit, loyalty, monogamy, and raising children. And
Yeah, you can be a feminist and value all, but
Okay.
feminism is a rejection of patriarchal system. They reject patriarchal. Like for you and your husband, let's give an example. Do you want you and your husband to be equals?
yes,
Okay, well that's feminism. So that's not an embrace of a patriarchal system. You're not saying I want my husband to be the head of the household. I want to be equal with my husband. Right?
but we live in a patriarchy.
I'm
So,
sorry.
like,
What?
you're saying that the problems we're having are due to feminism, and I don't understand how you're making that connection when we live in a patriarchy.
Do you think that the patriarchy is stronger or weaker than it was 100 years ago?
Probably just as strong.
Really?
Yeah.
So you think that women going into the workforce and things like this enabled the patriarchy?
I think if the patriarchy.
You think 100 years ago we had as many female leaders, we had as many females who were in charge of different systems, who were CEOs, who were in charge of corporate, you really believe that?
No, but I mean, isn't the point of patriarchy that it's the people at the very top that are controlling everything, and the people at the very top are like predominantly men?
Well,
and
no,
it's always going
it's
to be that way?
scalable. Like it's scalable, right? So you can have the people at the very top, but it goes all the way down to the family unit, with the man being held in the charge of the family unit and not the woman. So the responsibility tends to fall on the man, right? That's why
I don't think
women
it
didn't have bank
necessarily
accounts,
has
they
to-
didn't have credit lines, things like that.
Hey, Andrew, I think our internet's back. Sorry, our internet crapped out there for a couple seconds. Andrew, you getting us? It's still kind of...
Yeah, I got you.
It looks like it's getting... Sorry, guys. I don't know what... No, don't. Oh, it's kind of crapping out. Andrew, you still got us?
I still got you.
I don't know. Sorry. Something's... Full minute.
Yeah,
or two.
the quality went way down.
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
hold on. We're just...
Grayson.
Give us just one sec here. While we're waiting on that, just going around the table, do you consider yourself a feminist?
No.
Starting with you.
I would say humanist.
Humanist, okay.
No.
Into the mics, guys. You can't wave it. You got to
No.
speak.
No.
No.
No. No.
Recovered.
Recovered feminist. Okay. Wow. We're still our internet's pretty spotty here. Is it going to recover? It keeps dropping and going back and forth. Oh, now it's doing really well. It's gone super fucking saiyan. Hold on. But you can still hear us, Andrew. It's peculiar.
We're gonna have to recall him, especially if I reload.
We're going to have to recall him?
Yeah, because otherwise I'm gonna have to place the audio.
Can you pull up the chat? Is the chat still getting us?
Some people are saying we're back, and then it's lag.
The matriarchy is attacking us. It's the matrix. No, I don't know. We can't hear Andrew though.
Brian, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I just had myself muted, that's all.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I haven't lost you guys at all. And the spottiness of the internet it's greatly increased. So I think we're good now.
I think it looks green. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know. We lost a lot of viewers there, unfortunately, but hey, it is what it is. All right, we're back. Okay, so
Again, I might have to call Andrew because I'm probably gonna have to reload stream.
why? What's wrong with?
So when I reload, I don't want to explain it. You just have to trust us.
Okay, that's fine. Do you want to recall him now, and then I'll?
Yeah. Oh, no, it works. We're good. It's coming.
Okay, it's fine. Yeah, don't do it unless we have to. Well, let me just go back to, I guess, your original notes here. So, I mean, you said that you think men are kind of on the opposite side, where men are encouraged to be more sexually deviant or just abusive towards women, and you think it creates a weird dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're saying men are kind of encouraged to be more sexually deviant or just abusive towards women. Do you think men
I
or
would-
women are more sexually deviant?
Men or women?
Yeah,
I think men.
men.
Yeah.
You know the book 50 Shades of Grey?
Yeah.
Yeah, who bought those books? One of the best-selling books of all time?
Women.
Women.
Yeah.
The book where he's in a BDSM dynamic with her,
Sure.
and
I think my interpretation of that, I've never read
he's
the
a
book.
sadist.
I think my interpretation of that is perhaps women desiring a man whose sole attention is on her and not on various other women, and not
What about the
women in porn.
BDSM dynamic where he's a sadist?
I don't fucking know.
That's not part of it.
I don't know.
When you say deviant, sexually deviant, what do you mean? Just partners or preferences, or kind of unpack that a little bit for us.
I think I'm just getting at the tendency of men to
I do, yeah.
objectify women and sexualize women.
Do you think women sexualize women? Women
Yes.
sexualize themselves?
Yeah.
So if there wasn't such a predominance of women showing themselves on the internet and all of this, wouldn't the sexual deviance of men
I think it's-
be also
sorry.
down because they're not being flooded with imagery and just vulgarity from women?
Yeah, I think it would be good if all women would stop doing porn, but I don't think that women are creating the demand for it. And I think
but
you
they're
could
creating the supply, right?
I want to give you an anecdote. So I'm not inclined to choke women. The amount of women who have requested that I choke them is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It occurs to me that it seems like it's actually the women who are a bit more sexually deviant than men are.
I've heard from many women that they have gone on dates and had sex with a man for the first time, and the man puts his hand on her neck without even asking about it.
Okay.
I'm saying the opposite is true. I mean, that's been your experience. You've had women that have asked you to do that, but then there's also been plenty of men that have just gone and took it
Sure.
upon
Yeah,
themselves
it's probably
to do
both.
the same thing. Yeah.
It's probably both.
Okay. I'm not saying like the problems in society are more men's fault than women's fault. I'm saying I think that we are kind of put into this behavior where we're
Yeah, I
kind of
think
at
I'm
odds.
kind of willing to engage with this. I think I understand where you're going here. That men, when you say that men sexualize women more than women sexualize men, you mean that men, when they categorize women, we're looking at things like that are aesthetically pleasing to us, right? So almost every woman we meet, maybe in the back of our head, we think, I do her, right? Or something like that. Something like more akin to that. Is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think that's probably part of it. I think there are a lot of men that think that it's just completely normal to immediately start fantasizing about a woman that they find attractive, rather than just having.
Well, I don't know.
impulse
I
and
don't
let it
even know if
go.
they're fantasizing, but maybe they just have like a knee-jerk reaction, or that just pops into their head, right, or something.
Yeah, that's
like
fine,
this.
but I think a lot of people think it's okay to indulge in that.
Yeah, I would agree. But the thing is again, wouldn't this be evolutionarily advantageous for men to want to have sex with lots of women? And so they judge them based on their physical appearance, and the beauty standards that they have tend to coincide with how healthy they would be for offspring, right?
Sure, like I think I agree that these things have a natural basis, but I think that they are like extenuated or exacerbated by society. And the
Yeah,
amount of
but
emphasis
the
that we put
question
on-
is, when you're talking about this exacerbation, it seems that the exacerbation has gone the opposite way of reproduction, which is very strange to me.
Mm-hmm.
So you would think that if men were out there being sexual deviants and just having sex with tons of women, there'd be a lot more kids, but there's not.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, my question is, why do you think that there isn't?
because women are on birth control,
Yeah, and who pushed birth control?
probably feminists.
From what era?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know
well,
anything
that would
about
be
the history of
that
birth
would be the sexual revolution. So the thing that you're upset about, which is the promiscuity issue, that was brought to you by women. Brought to you by women, and the sexual revolution of, hey, all this chastity stuff, well, that's all bad. Women should be able to bang as many dudes as they want. This is a good thing. And that now they can because of birth control, right? That was part of the freeing mechanism. So just pointing that out.
I think male promiscuity was also more accepted back in the
Nick, can you
day
close
as
the
well,
door?
and just throughout history. It happened.
No, it really wasn't. Do you want to know why? Why it wasn't?
Sure.
Because if you don't have birth control, what is the natural outcome of sexual intercourse?
Baby.
Yeah, babies. And so if men weren't taking care of their babies, there was also a natural outcome as well. There was an enforcement mechanism. The woman's family would do things like beat the shit out of him. They would have what were called shotgun weddings. There was all sorts of different things that would happen. But there was an enforcement mechanism which basically said if you make offspring, you're going to have to take care of the offspring. You're going to have to take care of the woman that you had the offspring with. Those were natural mechanisms in society.
I don't think like mistresses or brothels were entirely uncommon back then.
They're not entirely uncommon now.
Very not uncommon now, but
Yeah,
I do-
very not uncommon now. But that's my point, right? Is that once you let the genie out of the bottle with a sexual revolution thing, and then you have the mechanism of birth control so that there's no effect of the sexual intercourse anymore, it's just pure pleasure and hedonism. Like, what the hell do you think is going to happen? Of course, this is exactly what's going to happen. What else could there be?
I don't
You can have
think-
all the fun with none of the responsibility. Like, what did you think would happen to society?
I don't think the attitudes that men are more able to step out on their wives or able to sleep around is something that's new.
Yeah, but so what? Like, monogamy is brought to you by Christianity, right? Monogamy is brought to you by religion. It's a religious enforcement mechanism, so there's no more left behind men. That
I don't
used to
think
be
it's
a big
necessarily a
problem.
religious enforcement mechanism. I think a lot of monogamy is also just evolutionarily advantageous.
Well, hypergamy would be
Okay, but then
evolutionary
religion
Sorry.
would be evolutionarily advantageous. That's the point.
Yeah,
And
it
yes,
is. I
it's
mean,
brought to you
it
by
has
religion,
been.
and religion would be evolutionarily advantageous. So if we're going to deduce this, we can figure this out, right? We can say, okay, so we evolved to be religious because religious people go for monogamy. That's why you would evolve that way, right?
I mean, not all religions are like that, though.
Well, that's what I
Yeah,
said, it was
but
brought to
hang
by
on. The most
Christianity.
predominant ones, the most predominant religions on planet Earth, in this case Christianity, enforces monogamy.
Is it?
Yes.
I thought Islam was the most predominant.
Well, you're wrong. The number one is Christianity. Number one.
Oh, didn't know that.
Here, let's bring it back to, you said that you think men are encouraged to be abusive towards women. What do you mean by abusive?
I think that was a poor choice of words. I already defined it. It's the improper use and mistreatment of women.
Okay. So they're not encouraged to be abusive towards women?
I think
Or are
they're
they?
encouraged to use and lie and manipulate and do what they can to get sex from women.
Are women encouraged to do the same in order to extract resources?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, well, I guess as long as you don't have...
Do you think a lot of men can do what you're describing?
Yeah.
You think like majority of men have the capacity to be like
To
sexual
lie?
deviants and be able to sleep with many women?
I don't know the exact statistics, but I think the vast majority of men watch pornography.
But that doesn't mean that they're being abusive towards women.
No, not necessarily, but I think they're engaging in an activity that requires you to objectify women, and it requires you to overlook how women end up in that position of being porn stars in the first place.
But I guess what I'm wondering is, I think even dating apps kind of show that most men don't have the capacity to meet up with a bunch of women. So women are able to choose, and they're choosing this only like a select few percentage-wise.
I would say probably the majority of the damage is probably done by a minority of men.
Wouldn't a majority of the damage be done by majority women? Because they're the ones who actually have the capacity to be more promiscuous, to be more manipulative because they have more opportunity?
No, I don't see how.
Why? If they have more sexual selection, how would they not be more prone to being more manipulative because they have more capacity
I think
to?
when you have less selection, that is when you have to go and resort to things like manipulation and lying and coercion and pushing boundaries.
But if you're not even that top tier person, like what women would consider attractive, you don't even have the opportunity to do that, unless you're talking about something that's forceful, which that's statistics don't bear out to be. Majority of men are like that.
I'm not saying that majority of men are like that. I think that men are more likely to be put into that position. And I'm trying to explain away the perceptions, like why do women have this perception of men as being users or abusers, or like why do women have this fear of men? And I'm not saying it's the responsibility of all men, but I'm saying that women have had this, they're drawing from their own personal experiences.
You don't think they're drawing from maybe cultural pressure for, like when Andrew was saying feminism kind of brought this? Feminism already positions a woman's worldview that they are oppressed, therefore there has to be an oppressor, right?
I think that could definitely add to it, where it's like it feels a lot worse when you go through something, and or maybe you make a mistake on your own, and you are looking for an out, a way to remove the blame from yourself. Yeah, I think you can.
So you could
can do
conflate that
But I
maybe
think-
your personal anecdotal experience is reflective of things that are happening more generally.
Say that again?
You're saying that something that anecdotally might happen to you, you're now extrapolating and saying that this could happen more generally?
I don't think that's what I.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out, because feminism is telling you you're oppressed, you're a woman. So who would be oppressing you if you're a woman? Other women or men?
I think the feminist argument would be.
Zesimora donated $200. Words have meaning, unless it contradicts my position, then it means two things at once where it is convenient for me. LOL. Whatever. Andrew's mental endurance is insane. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you, Zezi Mora. Appreciate it. If I can just move things along here a little bit, but so you said that there's a culture for men by men about how they should treat women. I don't want to linger on this because it gets into like the essay stuff, but
Sure.
You did write it down, so I'll touch on it briefly, but we'll only give it 5-10 minutes. And so you said so this is what you said. So I think a lot of men might find themselves in situations where they're alone with a woman who maybe is drunk, maybe not, whatever, and they aren't aware of the ways that she's been conditioned to be more passive, but also this biological prerogative for self-defense where there's a natural inherent dynamic between men and women. You said it's women, I think, from a physiological perspective. You can't deny that a man is stronger, and you're going to sense that if you're alone in a room with a man, you're going to be more agreeable, and then also probably more likely conditioned societally to be more agreeable, to find yourself to not press your boundaries as much as you should, because you assume that men are going to react violently if you do. You assume that from a biological perspective, but also you assume that because you're conditioned to believe that, and then men are probably not even thinking about that. I'm just a little confused. So are you saying that women who end up alone in a room with a man are, in all instances, are SA'd? I'm confused.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Well, you're saying like, just by virtue of being in that situation, that what? You wrote it. These are your words,
I
not
think
mine.
what I'm trying to convey is that when you are when you're alone in a room with somebody and there's a like inherent power dynamic.
What would the power dynamic be?
That he's a man and you're a woman.
So just simply by virtue of being a man, okay, that's the power dynamic.
Don't you think
Okay.
that there's like
No, go ahead.
something
Just finish
evolutionary to
your point. Go ahead.
that?
No, finish your argument. Go ahead.
I was saying that if you are a woman alone in a room with a man, there's an inherent power dynamic, and that I think there would be some sort of evolutionary adaptation where you would maybe be more submissive.
So you're saying if a
Acting
woman finds
self-preservation.
herself alone, assuming she's attracted to the man and has agreed to be in the room alone with him, right? How did they get there?
It doesn't have to be in that situation. I mean,
So they're
attracted
just,
to him.
what's the scenario that you're envisioning then?
okay, fine, we'll go with yours.
Well, I'm just like I don't know, I'm just a little confused here. So you're saying that like if a woman has consents to sex, it's not actually consent? Is that what you're arguing? I'm just confused.
I guess in a way that is kind of what I was getting at. But I think that there can be situations where there's coercion and there's boundary pushing and there's soft no's that aren't really taken seriously, and like maybe you're being playful, but you're also saying no. You're not trying to upset the person that you're with.
Okay. I don't know.
Isn't coercion using force and threats? Definitionally.
I guess in this instance, it's like implied threat due to the power dynamic.
So just his presence is the
Implication
threat?
of threat.
What's
But
that?
isn't
So
that
his
just based
presence
on
is a threat?
feeling?
Sorry, say
Like
that?
isn't that just based on feeling, not necessarily the fact of the matter?
Yeah, but don't you think that there could be an evolutionary adaptation for that, where it's better to be agreeable in a situation like that rather than to be combative?
No.
If you are actually in a threatening situation.
No. You have fight or flight, right?
And you don't think that it might be better for a woman to?
She may not
I
even
mean,
have
there could
control
be
of it.
there
That's what the
could
fight
be
or flight
some
is.
circumstances, but when you're talking about coercion in this sense, that wouldn't make any sense, right? There's no implication even of threat. You're just talking about a feeling that you have. Wouldn't that be more societally informed than anything? Like, for instance, if women were running around telling you that 50% of men are predatory, wouldn't that have an impact on whether or not you had a feeling that a man was being coercive towards you because society's telling you that men are a bunch of predators? 50%, for instance?
Yeah, I think that would definitely influence how you feel in that moment.
Yeah, I think it would. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think that might be, if we're using the way that you're kind of viewing coercion, that seems like it's far more coercive, than the alternative of a man just, I don't know what, giving you social cues for sex. I don't know. Is that what we're talking about here? Just kind of social cues?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, if that's what we're talking, then it seems like the social implication here is that women who believe that and spread around that 50% of men are hyperpredatory would be far more of an influence on this socially than any kind of fight or flight response, unless, because I mean, that's influencing the social cue, right?
You don't think that a power dynamic can also influence that, though? Just knowing that someone's stronger than you?
Well, I mean, men
You
are
think there's
around
a
men who are
physiological
stronger than them all the
response?
time.
So women.
They don't seem to, and they don't seem to kind of move into the idea that, as far as coercion goes, that any type of social interaction is going to be overtly threatening to them, even though they're around people who are stronger than them constantly. So, like, I don't know why women necessarily get this pass. There seems to be that when we're talking about social cues here, that the influence of women, often like with this idea that men are predatory, when they're really not. I mean, they're just really not. Statistically, that's not based in fact at all. It's true that there's more men who are predators in the way that you're talking about it than women, but who cares? It's not very many of them, right? It's still not this vast amount. So it seems like that is an influencer more than anything else.
Wait, so are you arguing that women?
Hang on. Do you mind if she just answers that real quick, or answers to that?
I don't have anything to say to that.
You think you kind of agree that that's true?
She doesn't have anything to say to it. So do you agree, or?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
What do you disagree with?
Can you ask me your question?
You want me to ask you a
Yes.
question?
Yes, what you were going to say.
You don't want to answer anything? No.
Killer of Cereal donated $200. It's not the cocaine bears we have to worry about anymore. It's the cocaine gators in Florida now. Ladies, would you rather run into a man or a 10-foot alligator while walking through the marsh?
What would you? Would you rather run into a man or a 10-foot alligator while walking through the marsh? Anybody here? Hands up for man. Hands up for 10-foot alligator. Okay, there's your answer. I'm confused. Okay, because you said that women are conditioned to be more passive, and you're lining that into what I think is you're saying that women are getting essayed because they're more passive, and men are physically stronger. That creates a power dynamic, and so by virtue of men being physically stronger, even if a woman consents, simply by virtue of the man being stronger, she was pressured into having sex with the man because the man is physically stronger, ergo, even if she consents to sex, the man was physically stronger, she was pressured into it, women are conditioned to be passive. Essentially, if a man in any situation is physically stronger than the woman, that's SA? I'm just not understanding your argument, really.
I don't necessarily consider it SA. I think what I'm trying to get is that we are shaped in certain ways, and when we have these interactions with each other, I'm trying to explain why women have a bad impression of men. And I'm not trying to put all of the blame on the men. I'm trying to explain that part of it comes down to how we view ourselves.
Right, but
in
you're
certain
talking,
situations.
what you're talking about here is like if you're alone in a room with a guy, and my understanding is if sex occurs, you're saying that, well, if sex occurs and the conditions are that women are more passive, that's what you're saying, and that the man's stronger, there's a power imbalance, therefore the man has essentially essayed the woman. Is that your position?
No.
So what are you trying to point towards
I think I'm
with
trying to
this
say that it could-
with this talk of women have been conditioned to be more passive? What are you alluding to?
I think it gave a list of examples in ways that men can be kind of shaped into these behaviors that are damaging towards women. And I don't want to focus too much on the idea of coercion or overlooking soft nose and things like that, because I think more of the damage comes from things like lying and manipulating women into sex and using them for sex.
What would be an
Pretending-
example of lying or manipulating a woman into sex? Like if a man who worked at McDonald's said he was a lawyer, would that be?
No, like giving the
I mean,
impression...
it would, but okay.
Sure, yeah, sure. Giving the impression that you're interested in having a relationship with somebody.
Can't
and-
women do that too?
Yeah, but I think it happens at a much higher frequency from the male
Mm.
side because there's more incentive to. If you tie your self-worth to how many women you have sex with, and you tie your self-worth to...
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you think?
So, I mean, that
What-
sounds like there's a cure, though. Like, immediately, it stands out to me that there's a cure. Now I understand what you're saying, at least. I understand your argument. You're saying, and I'll just kind of steel man this to make sure I get it right. You're saying, listen, if society is saying that men's self-worth is much higher based on, how many women they're having sex with, then they have an incentive to have sex with more women, thus lie to more women about wanting to have a long-term relationship in order to have sex with them, right?
Yeah, I would say that's part of
Okay,
it.
well then wouldn't the argument for this be female chastity? Wouldn't that literally cure that problem? Wouldn't female chastity literally cure that problem if women waited till they were married to have sex? Wouldn't that literally cure the problem?
I don't think necessarily, because part of the problem is the way that men view women, and that also needs
Yeah,
to be
they
cured, too.
okay, but if they view them as thing I want to have sex with, if they're just objectifying them, right? Thing I want to have sex with, and a woman goes, well, you can't have sex till we're married. How's that not the cure?
Maybe they just want to get married so that they can have sex with the person.
Yeah, but I mean, but if that is the case, then wouldn't that be vastly more preferable? Because you're saying they're lying to women about the wanting to have a long-term relationship with them. I mean, marriage is certainly a long-term commitment, right? I can't think of a more long-term commitment than that.
Sure, I don't think it's necessarily preferable, though, because I think a lot of women are feeling like they are undervalued and like they are not being appreciated for who they are as a person and only being appreciated for what they have to offer sexually.
Well, it seems that if a man's willing to marry them, they seem to be appreciated for basically everything. But if you're getting, what do they say, right? It's the old saying, if you're getting the milk for free, right? If you're getting the milk for free, then why buy the cow, right? So the question becomes, if that is your argument, and it does, and I did steel man it, you said it was, male promiscuity, they have incentive to lie so they can have access to sex. Okay, that's a high status, right? Got it. Well, if that is the status, then it sounds like female chastity would essentially cure this issue. I mean, I don't see how it wouldn't.
I don't think it does, because I think part of the problem is that women want to be valued for more than that.
Yeah, but they would be being valued for more than that. They would be getting married to men, right? Those men would definitely value them, or they wouldn't be marrying them, right?
But if they're still just marrying them because they want that status of or the access to a woman, I don't think.
Well, I'm sorry. Let's just assume for a second that like only 5% of them marry completely on the condition that that's the only way they can have sexual access. Wouldn't that still be completely superior in every way to modernity that you're talking about right now?
I don't think that a 5%. I don't think that would be inaccurate.
Let's say it's 50%. Wouldn't that still be superior to the
No.
modernity that you're? How would it not?
Sorry, in your example or scenario, is it like a society where we're not allowed to get divorced? Or
It's just
like
modern society. Modern society where you're saying there's a plague of men who will lie to women in order to get sexual access. It's like, okay, but if they lie to the woman and say, hey, I love you, but I'm willing to marry you and take care of you for the rest of your life in order to get access to that sex, how is that still not superior to the idea that they could just hump you and dump you? I don't get that.
Like, I suppose you could say that's superior, but how do we get there? And why do you think it's just
Yeah,
from
but that's
women?
not really the question of how we get there. First have to establish that that has to be superior to what we now have.
I'm not committed to an answer on that.
You're not committed to an answer. And so you think it would be inferior? That if men were marrying women for access to the sex, that would be an inferior system to what we have now? Where they just lie to them and then bang them and there's no consequences whatsoever?
I don't see why it would be superior. If
Well, because they would be in this, because your issue is they're lying, right, so that they can have sex and there's no social repercussions and they're lying about wanting a long-term relationship. But if they marry you for the sex, they're definitely committing to a long-term relationship.
okay, yeah, I see your point with that.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So then I guess
So then like female chastity, which should really be our number one thing we're looking at here, right?
I think I still don't necessarily agree.
Oh, okay.
Because
Not
I
necessarily?
think part of the problem is still the fact that women are feeling undervalued. And
Yeah,
not
I
wanting
get
to be
that they
valued
may
for
still,
sex.
but
And so
you would agree it would be vastly superior, right?
I don't necessarily agree because you marry somebody who just values you for sex, and then if that's the only thing, and you're still not feeling valued
Well, what
for
do
a
you
person.
think men value women for? Do you think what do you think that they're valuing them for? Like their credit cards? What do you think they value women? They value women because they want to have sex with them. They want them to have their children. That's the main value that women have to men. Like, what do you think the big value is women are bringing to the table absent sex? I actually want to know the answer to that question.
This is such a pointless
Love and
conversation.
friendship.
Love and friendship? You can get friendship from men. Why do you need friendship from women?
It's friendship with all these extra benefits, sharing your whole life with somebody, having a child with them, merging worldviews.
Sex.
Huh?
Sex. But so I mean, so instead of when you're saying friend, the distinction between you being a friend with a guy and you having a wife is your wife is your friend who you also have sex with. It sounds like the value here still seems to be the sex. Because you could have all those other conditionals with other people, but the sex seems to be the thing you are putting a value emphasis on.
I disagree, and I don't think sex should be the primary value because sex is kind of replaceable. I think the value that you get in a relationship is that merging of worldviews.
What do you bring to the table?
What do I bring to the table?
Yeah, in a relationship.
I think I bring a unique perspective, and I can help you live a more fulfilling life.
You think men date you because you bring them a unique perspective?
Yeah, I think I have given my partner a unique perspective, and I think I've helped him to start living a more fulfilling life, and I've led him to being a better person.
Doesn't every human being on planet Earth have a unique perspective?
No.
No, they're not. No.
No,
How
I
could
think-
two human beings not have unless you're saying all human beings are not unique?
Sure, I would say a lot of people have. You could say down to there's some differences between people, but I think there's a lot of overlap and shared worldviews.
So you want to be valued. So you're one of those. I want to be valued for more than just my sexuality, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
What do you
most
want to be
people
valued
do.
for?
What
do you want to be valued for?
Yeah, I guess that's a good question that I don't have. I want to be valued for who I am as a person.
Okay, but why wouldn't you be valued for who you are as a person, and the highest value that the man has with you is still the sex? I don't get that. I still value you as a person. I think you're great. I think you're wonderful, this and that. But the not having sex thing, that's a deal breaker. That seems reasonable.
I think I would want to be. I don't think I would want sex to be at the top of that list.
Why?
What I'm valued for. Would you want like a woman to value you most for the money that
Would
you
I
provide?
want my woman to value having sex with me more than anything? Oh, it's terrible. Oh, no, what would I do? What would I ever do if a woman only valued as her top priority having sex with me? Oh, it's terrible. How would I ever get through the day? She didn't love my big brain and big mind, and she only valued sex as her highest priority with, I don't know how I could live.